allow the two children to attend the budget every year.
It's okay. Off your mind. It's okay.
She
Off your mind.
like me.
Chai! Now wow, people wey suppose talk truth to power don't off mic. And if we talk, now 500,000 they go summer us, call them hate speech. But fear not, Maiyegun don't come. Ingo torchlight every corner, nooks and cranny of all these bad people where they spoil our country. So my people make we loud, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. My people make we shout, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. This one not the off in mind, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. And in the touchlight every corner, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Okay, some people be they holla say they want the power. Chai, them be promise us say we go get light and power. Them hustle sote they can't get the power. But now they know they do anything with the power. Every day, dollar just they get the higher power over naira. See them talk say make we off mind, but thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you ladder, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. My people make we shout, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. This one not the off in mind, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo.
I am so sorry about that. Thank you, by the way, to somebody who just picked that up. Thank you so much. Just one sec, okay? All I have been saying since is just to tell us what this conversation is going to be about this afternoon. I apologize again that the audio was off. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear now. I apologize. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you very much. As you are joining as well, please share this. Now, without wasting much of our time, I said we have a book that we are reading. Okay, we've started, and it is called the White Malice. Yeah, White Malice, which covers the stories, the history of how the Americans derailed what could have been the greatest continent on earth. So this is the background story that could help a lot of us, especially Pan-Africanists, to understand that the journey of us losing our identity and the continued confusion that comes with that today is all orchestrated. And maybe if you will know better, a lot of us that might find ourselves in different positions of authority, making decisions that's going to affect millions of lives, with all this background history, education, and all that, we could possibly be educating the next generation of liberators. But before we go to that, like I said when my audio was sort of off, I said, if you look at the writer of this broadcast, it is the admittance by Festus or Frostus Keyamo, who have now admitted that Nigeria here was a scam after all. Now, I was actually asking if you still have any of these Buharidins, Buharididiris, Buharidinotus, Buharidijatus, the Buharishukus, the Ngoziaris, the Unekaharis, the obedient fools, the sophisticated morons, and the unboot slaves, voluntary slaves, the crumb eaters, the crumb chasers, the ass lickers, and the all-risers, those trolls who kept shouting on you, on myself. They were prominent on my platform. I'm talking about 2015 to 2022. They were very prominent. I was, like the villain, and their criminal oppressors, they were their heroes. Just same way they are shouting coastal road nonsense you are seeing now, was the same way they brought this their Nigeria here. And all we did was just to ask questions. We knew they had no answers. These were the people who were calling you enemies of Nigeria. They call me that all the time. That is what the defenders of their oppressors, that is what they call me. And I actually wear the badge with pride. Enemy of the Nigeria they are forcing on you and me. The Nigeria of slavery, the Nigeria of bleak future, the Nigeria of generational poverty. So if you are enemy of that Nigeria, be proud. Okay? If your instinct tells you this is not real, believe it. And these are the guys today who have now metamorphosed into Agbadorians, the bastards, the bad idiots, who are calling you enemy of Nigeria now, based on the actions, the fraud that these ones are perpetuating. Some even went online, may Nigeria here succeed. May Nigeria here succeed. Today, a member of that same government, who is also a member of this government, Fraudsters Keyamo, was a state minister of labor under Bokwari. Among those who told you, wow, the giant strike, the giant this or that Bokwari was doing, you were going to repeat that all your sufferings, all your hardship, under Bokwari. Don't join them to criticize Bokwari. Bokwari is laying foundation. Only the enemies of Nigeria were complaining and criticizing Bokwari. Later they said, oh, the enemies of Nigeria wanted Bokwari to fail. But guess what? These guys were looting Nigeria. Like they were looting Nigeria with reckless abandon. You know what that means? It's like nobody was watching. It was a bazaar. Whatever you can do. Even Keyamo, Keyamo himself carried out his own scam of over 30 billion naira. But he's in the good book now, so don't worry, he is safe. Have you forgotten that Keyamo pulled a stunt of employing 1,000 youth in every local government? And they were supposed to employ 774,000 of you to be cleaning gutters and all of that. Well, that actually cost Nigeria 31 or 31 point something billion naira. I saw few wheelbarrows. I saw few pictures. Do you guys still have that job? Where is the evidence that he paid it? So exactly, it was like, do whatever you can. Nobody was watching. Hi. We were screaming, we were shouting, you called us enemy of Nigeria. Only for you to come back later to now say it was a scam. After all, we are not the enemies of Nigeria. They are the real enemies. But today, majority of these same guys are now in the drive telling you they were fixing Nigeria, making the same fraudulent policies that they are going to come back in 4 years, in 8 years to tell you, oh, it was a scam. And then you look back and be like, they don't scam us again because you are allowing it. You are. It's always obvious. Listen, they said they wanted to start Nigeria national carrier. There is a guy in Kano, I think Kano. Then it cut across other northern states, right? I can't remember the full name now, okay? That person was a notorious smuggler. He smuggled anything. He would smuggle anything in and out of Nigeria. It got so bad that the Nigerian custom, the rest of them, they couldn't do anything. It became worse that Yaradua had to call him and say, come. The level of the smog, the stuffs they bring into Nigeria, that's a kind of, it's like making Nigeria dumping ground for substandard stuff, weapons and other stuff as well. So Nigeria government that couldn't do it, they said they couldn't do anything to him. So they had to invite him. The president invited him and offered him a deal. And that deal was, it will stop smuggling, okay? So they will agree to give him a special few days in a week. That will be his days only. To bring in anything he wants to bring, right? And he will be supervised. But it's not like anyone else like others, because most of them are contrabands. So they wanted to, at the point, they had to offer him money to stop the smuggling entirely. You know what he did? He became a billionaire in northern Nigeria. This person, Rano here or something, he started an airline. Yeah, from the money, he became a billionaire, a large billionaire that is funding people and sending people to make a very good man now, they will say. So Nigeria can build refineries. Nigeria can build and manage refineries. Nigeria can start and operate national carrier. But the reason why Nigeria will never do any of such, Nigeria will never build and maintain a toilet, is because the purpose of starting anything primarily is never because of the national interest or anything. Say, oh, Nigeria interest. It is about the primary interest of this crook who can sit down and say, what do you think we can do with it? Say, yeah, okay. Okay, let's go ahead and push it. Then they push the file in their FEC. Whom approved, get money released. Now it will now be on them to show working. You get what I mean now? Let me tell you. See the way Tifnumbu is doing too. That was how Bokwari was doing. These guys, they will tell them, okay, Esa, I had a dream last night. I think Nigeria should have a national airline. And because of that, sir, we think the project will cost us about 40 billion so that we can, put everything in place. This is the proposal that, and in the AFEC meeting, approved 40 billion. So it is now on you to now show them what are you doing with the 40 billion. And that's exactly what happened. The fraud was so obvious. Nigeria wanted to start a national carrier. There is no, there is nothing called, visibility report to give people the idea of, I don't know what happened to my camera. It keeps going flashy and brighter and all of that. Is that normal? That's not normal. I don't like that. Give me 1 sec, okay? Just 1 sec. I think that should do. I didn't like that. The more I moved, the camera kept zooming me and like shining this brighter light on my, I don't know. That should be better. Even if you kept doing that, okay? Oh, you didn't? That's good then. Anyway, let's continue. Right? You are starting a national career. There is actually no, into this world, okay, making businesses, government businesses accessible is becoming a thing. Because you believe that any information you get from a government verified website should be authentic. Okay, Nigeria wanted to start a national carrier. That's a very huge thing. You don't do that by just raising a memo. I'm planning to steal money. Number one, as a government, you design the policy. Say, see you, this is a business-oriented idea. And we want Nigerians to own it. We are planning to start with 50 aircraft that will cost so and so, right? And it will take so years before they will be delivered. But before that, we are starting a partnership with any interested airline flying Nigeria that could fly international too. And we will use our position to secure all those destinations for you. So as a government, right, you make it open for, we have what do you call that thing again? No, African Wahala. They call it immediate, medium, and long. Okay, yeah. Short, medium, and long-term plan. Be very big business. So, because to get like 50, for a country like Nigeria to be serious that they want to start anything like that, right? So you have to kind of be like, okay, we are going to throw it open to all of you. It is going to be let's say it's going to be a $15 billion business. And government doesn't have that. But here it is. Government is going to sell the shares to the public. Even Bole seller, the Mama Alata, can buy shares from that. Okada rider, they will buy shares. So you throw it open enough that it is not just your rich friends, like everybody go buy. Then you raise the money. And you give them the timeline enough to say, okay, this is how, all of this should be available on a website where everybody can have access to information. Then maybe as a national carrier, at this point, the Ministry of Aviation can automatically say, okay, listen, there's the Ministry of Aviation supervising Nigeria Air. Nigeria Air has its own management. Here are the managers. And they are starting recruitment of steward, stewardess, they are recruiting pilots for some certain aircraft they want to purchase. So if you are specialist in this area, we are recruiting. You will see all of that there. So that you see why they are expecting the public to subscribe to the shares that will raise the money for it. They are already training the staff for it. You get that? If they have to start expansion of their airport to give a special privilege to Nigeria here, at every airport in Nigeria, they can include, that one can now be a government project. So by so doing, you've raised the money for the whole thing, right? It may not even be you as a minister, even you as a government, that will eventually conclude the birth of that national carrier. But you've laid the foundation. They've trained all the staff, the pilots, the emergency handlers, this, that. Everyone is ready. The money is ready. And then, you can then say, yeah, they are doing something. I swear, they are planning to, even those majority of the aircraft they want to use, majority of them are still in production, but they've managed to actually buy some immediate ones who are not really brand new. They've bought some immediate ones, about 30 aircraft to launch. That's what you do. But this guy carried out this scam. He came to London to come and do hair show in London. Hair show where people would display all kinds of new technologies for flying, new aircraft, newly designed this or that, including some old engines too, like, designs. They are there on display. It is hair show. We have that in Scotland. Yeah, we do go to, is it called Shorts? I think it's called Shorts or Lass, rather. Yes, Lass. We do go to Lass. There's a big beach in, northern part of Scotland. It's called Lass, right? So they do have air show there. You will see all this kind of, 1920 aircraft, 1930, 1940, all of their warplanes, including modern ones, displaying, flying everywhere. That was what Adisirika came to. And he came here with a logo. They went to Bahrain to design a logo for Nigeria Air. They said that logo alone cost Nigeria $450,000. Bahrain. And they were celebrating. They said, this is a scam. You are just enemy of Nigeria. Why can't you be positive for Nigeria for once? Why is it that you are always negative? I said, actually, okay. And now they will still do it. I said, okay, if they have not done that, there's no point in going public, making it look like to start a airline is like starting a taxi company. Get some money, walk to a car dealer, and buy two taxis. And then you have started Uber. That's not what you do when you start your line. I have been telling you about this student loan scam. Even you who believe that I am your enemy, telling you that this is a scam, you will come back to hear it later. If you want to start a student loan and you have a body, every student should be able to say, you can easily go there and see if your school is listed among the school they will fund. Where is the money coming from? And all of these questions, who are those who are going to be handling all of that? Have you seen any recruitment going on to handle this? No. But they announced it since Lumumba has announced your student loan since since June 2023. They shifted it to August. Then they shifted it to October. Then they shifted it to December. Then they shifted it to January. Then February. Then April. This is May. Then they came up with something. They said, oh, it is now finalized. It's been amended. Yeah. But yet you still can't go anywhere to really read about it. Well, they set up a portal now, that you can go there like the end power. Go there and go and apply. I saw that 2 days ago. Well, that's a good start. That's some improvement. For this year, Nigeria here, scam. at a point in May 2023, a year ago, at this Sirika with Ethiopian Airline, he paid, listen to this, to make this scam so real, when people like us will never stop talking or asking, you know what they did? They now flew, they go make a deal with Ethiopian Airline by paying them $350,000 just to put a sticker on one of their aircraft. Yeah, one of their aircraft. To put a sticker on it that says Nigeria here and fly it to Nigeria so that Nigerians can see it, that it is not fake, it is not lie, it's not a scam. It's just that some of the investors that we told you have invested $10 billion, $20 billion. Something happened, that they change, So, but just so you know that Nigeria here is coming. 4 days or 5 days before the end of Bukwari's inglorious, murderous regime, Adisirika flew this aircraft to Abuja and took journalists to Abuja airport, where they were congratulating him. Nigeria newspapers, they had these pictures on their pages congratulating Adisirika for bringing back the glory of Nigeria. Nigeria here. I swear that happened. I was here on my program that same night. I played that video. And there were still some accursed mumus. They were saying, oh, Benny, just admit that you are wrong. Benny Maiyegun, just agree that you are wrong. God has put the enemy of Nigeria to shame. But they tried to explain to us, say, the arrangement from the start was that they signed a deal with Ethiopia Airline. So Ethiopia Airline is going to operate Nigeria Air, and Nigeria will make profit. That is it. What is wrong? What is wrong with all these people complaining? Baba Shane Koti Wogoso makes sense. That thing where you just said should make any sense. Does that make any sense to you? And where can we read about this? Immediately after that, aircraft turned around, and it got watered and all of that. Journalists came, they took pictures next to that aircraft on the tarmac of Nigeria, Azikiwe Airport, Abuja. They took pictures, and the next day, the headlines in Nigeria was like, the headlines were, Nigeria wins, Nigeria fly, finally. The Nigeria Air Fly High. Adisirika has done the unimaginable. Baba, that's how they continue to ride the mumu. So the following day, that same aircraft, which was working, the aircraft was flying the Ethiopian Airline a day before. They removed the sticker. So they put the sticker over it to read Nigeria Air. Flew to Nigeria, collected and pocketed over $350,000 for that show. Then he flew back to Ethiopia. They removed the speaker, and the aircraft was back as Ethiopia Airline, and he was already on his way to Egypt, carrying passenger that have booked a day before, probably months before. That was the end of Nigeria here. Like, I want to read this. Solomon Grundy. You remember that one, eh? Solomon Grundy, born on Monday, Christian on Tuesday. Can you come back? I'm gonna go look for it. Solomon Grundy, born on Monday, Christian on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, grew was on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday. That was the end of Solomon Grundy. That was the end of Nigeria here. Today, the guy is standing trial, though, for other criminal activities he perpetuated as Minister of Aviation at Deceit. He built himself a very big palace in his state. Palace like that of Sultan Palace. It's like a big estate, right? But it is designed in those old Arabian kind of style building. He's like an emir. He's dressing like an emir. He saw fraud, scam. Stealing is not haram. Looting is not haram. God damn it.
I wish the Minister of Aviation will calm down a bit because he sounded more like an activist than a minister, and the passion sometimes drowns out the message. But of course, even when the former administration first touted the issue of Nigeria Air, I think almost unanimous opinion in Nigeria is that better not go down that path again, because it will most probably end up like Nigeria Airways. The governments here have shown incapacity to really run complicated businesses like that, and it's not surprising that in 8 years the Air Nigeria never took off. Only on the last day of the former minister, he brought one plane from Ethiopia. So to that extent, Minister Keyamo is right that we should not only suspend, probably we should scrap that project and look for how to partner with private investors. Now, insisting that at this point that it has to be a Nigerian-owned airline that will go, as he said, to New York and Washington might be a tall order. You see, the international aviation industry is very complicated and capital intensive, and you also have to worry about safety. There has to be a lot of training and very good facilities and all that, and we should better plan that very, very carefully. It's not a matter of beating our chest and saying Nigeria owns this airline. There are other controversial things that the minister said, like that all the trapped airline money has been cleared. He said something like that. I hope that is true, because you know, earlier this year we had reports saying like Central Bank has cleared all the foreign debts, and then people say, I know, but you only paid a few $100 million out of $7 billion. And then they said, no, what we cleared was the how do they put it, the cleared debt, or the confirmed, verified. Exactly, I think that's the word, that it's a verified one. You know, we shouldn't pay, because unless the foreign airlines themselves confirm, we are not sure whether what the minister said is actually...
It's true. Anyway, that's the story for another day. So they said that Emirates Airline is coming back to Nigeria in October. Okay, so maybe they are, is it Emirates Airline or something, right? So some people are now saying that if because of their money they suspended issuing visas to Nigerians, and then they just want to sneak back in like nothing happened. Even the visa ban has not been lifted, but the Keyamo team, they are already celebrating it. Yeah. October. Anyway, we'll go on to our white malice. This one. So we have reading to do. Remember, although this afternoon I'm going to try and then do this even up to like 6 p.m. So that means we can have a wee chat in the middle of it. Okay, I can take calls. So I'll read this till when I'm kind of like a bit tired. All right, or getting ready to prepare for the evening. So yesterday we started reading White Malice, written by Susan Williams, and the story of how the African independence were skewed against Africans, and the mineral resources of Africans, all the mineral resources in Africa, became the targets of the Western power as well as the Soviet Union. So Africans in Africa are worthless to all these outside powers. Our resources are more important to them. And as long as they have access to them, then they won't bomb Africa. The moment we come together to say enough, the bomb may start dropping. In fact, with the recent happenings, many people are beginning to believe that their most touted World War III is likely going to be fought in Africa, on African soil, using Africans to fight this, while America, Britain, Europe, and even Russia will supply all the needed weapons. All of these are not because of any other thing than the African resources. This can give you a background story to how it all started. And it is called the White Malice. I will continue reading. If you are busy with something else, of course, you can continue listening in the background. Okay, I'll do my best not to read too fast, okay? And please pardon that my voice. I don't even know if it's a good voice reading, but people kind of love it. Or you do love listening to it, right? Thank you. So please share this. At a point, I can open the line and you can call in and we can have a chat. I would call that a break at some point. So to those who have listened to this, or if this is the first time you are listening to this reading, well, this is the second time we are reading it. Okay? Just go on to Maiyegun's Diary Political. You will see a copy of that from yesterday, starting with Kwame Nkrumah, the CIA, the FBI, his marriages, spying on him. Then we got to the Congo, the richest, supposedly the richest country on earth. It has the best of all resources. And these resources, rather than being blessings to the people of Congo, it is the other way around. It's almost like a curse. The more resources they have, the more of them that these external powers have had to kill. King Leopold II is recorded to have killed over 10 million Congolese during the time of his reign from Belgium. Congo is reported to be 85 times the size of Belgium, right? But the king in Belgium was able to inflict a lifetime generational injury, not just the physical one, but including the mental one, where it's reported that hands were cut off as a sign that a police officer was walking. It was horrible. It became teary too. The connections of the African Americans to Ghana, we've also gotten to that, where the African Americans, including the civil rights movement in America, Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, and so many other of these world famous African American civil rights activists, how they were all welcomed to Ghana. And they actually adopted Ghana as being the first African or all-black African country to be independent, it gave so much hope to the people of that era. And it's kind of emotional too. So thank you for listening. And please, we shall continue the reading from chapter 4. And this is just the part 1 of the book. And this is page 36. Thank you so much for listening. Now, chapter 4, Hands of Africa. In the early morning of Monday, 8th of December 1958, the white-painted Accra Community Center was electric with anticipation. In the sunlight courtyard, overlooking the sea, people were greeting each other and chatting excitedly. The heat was already baking, and the slow turning of the fans in the large auditorium did little to cool the air. But by 9 a.m., the room was already filled up with people waiting for the start of the All African People's Conference, AAPC, the first time in history that Africans from across the continent would assemble together. The conference would begin officially at 10 a.m. with the arrival of Prime Minister Nkrumah to give the opening speech. The heads of delegations sat on a platform behind the rostrum at the end of the hall. Behind them was an immense banner on which was portrayed a flaming torch painted in black on a map of Africa. Above the rostrum, stretching from wall to wall in letters 3 feet high, were the words, "Hands of Africa. Africa must be free." The theme, "Hands of Africa," was directly influenced by a speech Nkrumah had made 8 months earlier at the closing of the Conference of Independent African States, which had been held in Accra. It had been attended by the 8 independent states of Africa: Ethiopia, Ghana, Liberia, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, and the United Arab Republic of Syria and Egypt. It was decided at this meeting to hold on an All-African People's Congress later that year as a way of bringing together the freedom movement of every part of Africa to put meat on the bones. Notices were rushed out to call people to the conference. Peoples of Africa, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. You have a continent to regain. You have freedom and human dignity to attain. More than 300 political and trade union leaders responded. They represented some 65 organizations from 28 African territories, including colonies ruled by Britain, France, Belgium, Portugal, and Spain. Fraternal delegates and observers also came, including visitors from Canada, the People's Republic of China, India, Indonesia, the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, the United States of America, Britain, and other European countries. The delegates started to arrive in Accra on Friday, 5th December. So too did an army of local and overseas journalists and cameramen. These were heavy days, remembers Cameron Dodo, who was working at the time for the newsroom of Radio Ghana. The atmosphere in our part of Africa was quite intoxicating. Apart from independence, Independence Day the year before, he cannot recall a day that excited Ghanaians more than the day the All-African People's Conference opened. Signs at bus stops offered slogans of encouragement: ever forward, never backward. Once the delegates had signed in at the secretariat and received their freedom badges, they gathered on the terrace. Many of them knew each other, at least by reputation. And the attendance has been described as a who is who of African nationalism. You name it, commented Maida Springer, an American labor activist at the conference. They were there from everywhere. One man was unknown to most of the delegates: Patrice Henry Lumumba from the Belgian Congo. Lumumba, 33 years old, was distinctive, tall and very thin, with an earnest, bespectacled face and a slight beard. He was the president of the newly established movement, National Congolese, MNC, and had come to Accra with two other members of his party. Cameron Dodu met Lumumba at the airport. Dodu, who was on an assignment to report on the arrival of the delegates, was impressed. I remember Lumumba. He recollected many years later, because of his goatee beard and his glasses, which gave him the look of an intellectual. My French was not up to scratch, but with the help of an official of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was able to talk to him for a while before he was whisked away by an official car. Lumumba spoke of his wish to seek inspiration from Ghana and to exchange ideas with other freedom fighters. Nkrumah was a stickler for punctuality. He arrived at the center in his black Rolls Royce right on time, escorted by police outriders. Outside, a crowd of about 2,000 people had been waiting for the Prime Minister in the morning sunshine for almost 2 hours. People lined the side of the road carrying placards in English and French, bearing slogans as "Ne touchez pas l'Afrique" and "Welcome Africa's freedom fighters." On the other side of the road were the flags of 9 independent countries in Africa. As Nkrumah's car swung into view, the crowd burst into thunderous cheering, reported Accra's Daily Graphic. And there were shouts of freedom. A smiling Nkrumah waved to them all with a white handkerchief, dressed in a richly colored kente cloth and a cool white shirt. Nkrumah climbed out of his car. He was greeted by a small group of men led by Tom Mboya, a prominent Kenyan trade unionist who would chair the conference. Mboya slowly ushered Nkrumah into the center, with his arm resting in a comradely manner on Nkrumah's shoulder. As they walked, they spoke quietly to each other, nodding their heads. They entered the hall, and immediately the buzz of conversation faded away. People rose to their feet, beaming and cheering, and there was vigorous clapping. Then Mboya led Nkrumah to the rostrum. Mboya spoke first. "This is a historic occasion," he observed solemnly. "I am sure that all who are here will recognize the significance of it. He himself was deeply conscious of its importance. He also felt keenly the honor accorded to him by the conference committee when they appointed him as chairman. The day he arrived in Ghana, when he was greeted with his unexpected news, this unexpected news, he wrote later, was the proudest day of my life. As he looked out at the packed rows of expectant faces, Mboya put aside his prepared address. Instead, the New York Times reported he made a speech during which one could have heard a pin drop in the pauses between bursts of cheering and clapping. He said he had no doubt that the 200 million people of Africa were represented in that room. Then he drew a contrast between the conference that was just beginning and a conference that had taken place 24 years earlier and thousands of miles away. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, where European nations had met to decide how to partition Africa. That meeting, he said, was known as the Scramble for Africa. But today, he declared firmly, those same powers will now decide to scram from Africa. This statement was heard with rapt attention by the audience. It was seized on by the foreign journalist, and the word "scram from Africa" soon blazed across the headlines of newspapers around the world. Then Mboya formally called on Kwame Nkrumah to open the conference. Fellow African freedom fighters, ladies and gentlemen, began Nkrumah. Then he stopped. My pride, he went on slowly, slowly, overflows at the sight of so large a number of African comrades in arms, who, imbued with the fervent desire to see Africa free, the first time in the history of our continent, he observed that the assembly in front of him marked the opening of a new epoch in the history of Africa. Never before, he said, has it been possible for so representative a gathering of African freedom fighters not only to come together, but to assemble in a free, independent African state for the purpose of planning for a final assault upon imperialism and colonialism. Then he set out his vision for the liberation and unity of the African continent. This coming together, he said, will evolve eventually into a union of African states, just as the original 13 American colonies have now developed into the 49 states constituting the American community. He praised the practice of Gandhi, who had led the campaign of peaceful civil disobedience in India. This focus on struggle through nonviolence had been emphasized in the earliest plans for the conference. The cause was just, Nkrumah pointed out, and wholly in consonance with the principles enunciated in the Charter of the United Nations. But Nkrumah also included a warning. Do not let us also forget that colonialism and imperialism may come to us yet in a different guise, not necessarily from Europe. This was heard in different ways by members of the audience. everyone here knows that it means America, said the representatives of the New China News Agency confidently. Many Americans and Britons were equally convinced that Nkrumah was warning against Soviet, Chinese, or Egyptian designs. After 40 minutes, Nkrumah brought his address to a close on an emphatic note. All Africa shall be free in this our lifetime. He assured the audience, this decade is the decade of African independence. Forward then to independence. He spoke clearly and firmly. To independence now. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa, I salute you. There was thunderous applause. Joshua Nkomo, a freedom fighter from Southern Rhodesia, was profoundly moved. Nkrumah, he said, was one of the most inspiring orators he had ever heard. Ezekiel Mfalele, a South African delegate who had been forced into exile and was now a lecturer at the Department of Extramural Studies at the University College, Ibadan, in Nigeria, was exhilarated. He noted that Nkrumah spoke with restrained impetuosity, as he warned the imperial powers to pack up voluntarily rather than be forced out. After Nkrumah's opening speech, messages were read loud from Nikita Khrushchev, a leader of the Soviet Union, from To and I, the premier of the People's Republic of China, and from leaders in East Germany, Bulgaria, North Korea, Yugoslavia, and North Vietnam. There were also a message from Lord Listowel, the newly appointed British Governor General of Ghana, who in any case was sitting in the front row of the hall. No one would have guessed that for the past few months, civil servants in Whitehall had been communicating feverishly in cipher with the British colonial administrations in Africa, concerned about the prospect of the embarrassing political and security consequences in our territories. That might result from this subversive conference. There was brief consideration of a plan to prevent attendance by delegates from British colonies, but the idea was rejected in case it gave the impression that Britain was unsympathetic to African advance. No greeting arrived from the White House. This disappointed many of the delegates who were expecting American support, not only because the United States itself had struggled to overthrow colonial rule, but also because it had taken the side of Egypt against France, Britain, and Israel during the Suez Crisis. After Nkrumah's address, the conference agenda was presented. Public plenary sessions would be held in the mornings, at which the heads of delegations would speak. This would be followed in the afternoon by closed committee sessions. 5 committees were appointed with the task of studying special topics such as racism and discrimination. The organizing spirit of the conference was George Padmore, whose mark was on everything from the conference program to the format of the program and resolutions, After independence the year before, Nkrumah had asked Padmore to come to Ghana as his advisor on African affairs and to coordinate the activities in Ghana of Africa's freedom fighters. It proved a wise decision. In the judgment of Cameron Dodo, since Padmore knew everyone who was anyone in Africa or knew someone who knew them, just after the end of the Second World War, Padmore, in partnership with Nkrumah, had organized the 5th International Conference of the Pan-African Congress in the city of Manchester in Britain. That Congress had put a spotlight on the fact that although the war had been fought in the name of freedom, millions of people still lived under the yoke of colonial rule. But the AAPC in Accra was different because for the first time, it took place in Africa. In the words of one Kenyan involved in the proceedings, it brought Pan-Africanism home. To make it clear that a new tradition had started, Nkrumah insisted on changing the label Pan-African to All African. Many of the African delegates faced obstacles getting to the conference. Noted Maida Springer. He helped them with information and doing whatever I was asked to do. Some of them, she recalled years later, were there with a price on their head. You know, we had somehow sneaked them out of the country. What was significant, she thought, was that Africans from East, West, North, and South were meeting for the first time. Some of them could have culture shock. They were so different from other Africans in terms of their approach, in terms of their language, in terms of attitudes. But the common denominator was that they were meeting in an African country. Some people had been contacted, but many recalled T. Ras Makonnen, a Guyanese-born Pan-Africanist who had moved to Ghana when it became independent. Just came, he said, many people just came. People arrived from Unyasa land, now Malawi, by the Congo route and from all over. We will be rung up by the police at the frontier and told that some fellows had arrived. They would have no passports. And they would say simply, we've got no documents because this is our country. This is our land. What's all this about needing a passport? It was overwhelming. And it meant that we needed enlightened policemen on the frontiers who would know not to enforce the regulations too strictly. Mekonnen continued. The message of independence had gone out. The call had gone to near and far, and the various groups had just set out to come to Rome, Ghana. Wow. When they arrived, Mekonnen took care of them, arranging clothes when necessary and a place to sleep. For West Africans, he wrote in a later memo, it was relatively straightforward to find their way to Accra. But a number of the Southern African delegations he found had to be headed. Our couriers had to go to places like Lesotho and Zambia, then the British Protectorate of Northern Rhodesia, then the British Protectorate of Northern Rhodesia to help with passports. Among the delegates were prominent leaders of the resistance movement against the hated Central African Federation, also known as the Federation of Rhodesia and Unyasa Land, which had been created by the British in 1953 as a way to preserve white settlers rule in Central Africa. They included Kenneth Kaunda of Northern Rhodesia, who went on to become the founding president of independent Zambia in 1964. Hastings Banda of Nyasaland, who became the premier of independent Malawi in the same year. Mr. Keyamo of Nyasaland, who became foreign minister in Malawi's first independent government, and Joshua Nkomo of Southern Rhodesia, who served as vice president of Zimbabwe from 1990 following majority rule in 1980. The arrangements for the conference were perfect, observed Keyamo, and it was amazing to see how everything had been geared to increase our sense of unity and common purpose. Ghana seemed to be the political mecca of Africa. There was an atmosphere of free and fearless talk, he added, in which we argued, exchanged experience, and compared notes. Other freedom fighters included Dr. Felix Roland Momi of French-ruled Cameroon, who was the president of the Union of the People of Cameroon, UPC, A.R. Mohammed Babu of the British Protectorate of Zanzibar, and Franz Omar Fanon, a psychiatrist born on the French-ruled island of Martinique, who was the great-grandson of a slave. Fanon led a delegation of the National Liberation Front, FLN, which was fighting a bitter war for freedom in Algeria against its French colonizers. The FLN had set up a government in exile in Congo just a few months before. Eslander Robinson, the wife of the world-famous bass baritone singer and actor Paul Robeson, was there too. She was ecstatic to be in Accra. Africa, she exclaimed, is on our way. Her only regret was that Paul, now on a concert tour, could not be with her. The Robersons, who were close friends of Nkrumah, identified closely and actively with Africa. Paul Robeson's father had been born into slavery on a plantation in North Carolina and traced his heritage to Nigeria. In my music, my plays, my films, declared Robeson in 1935, I want to carry always this central idea to be African. He said he was learning Swahili, Twi, and other African dialects. Robeson sent a telegram with warmest greetings to the AAPC, explaining that he was deeply disappointed to miss this historic conference. But soon, he said, he hoped to be on the soil of my beloved Africa. For now, he sent his heartfelt hopes for the success of the conference's deliberations, for the glorious future of the African peoples. The Soviet Union sent a team of observers led by Pigam A. Asimov, the principal the principal of Turkmen State University. It included Ivan Potekin, a scholar of African affairs who had previously spent time in Ghana and was warmly welcomed back. A large delegation from the United Arab Republic was led by Fuad Galal, the vice president of the Egyptian National Assembly, who was described by a journalist at the conference as a squat, powerful man who was everywhere, consulting, interpreting. There was a busy program of social events including cocktail parties by individual delegations, official receptions, a visit to a tobacco factory, a Ghana-Guinea football game, film screenings and traditional dances. The United States Information Agency arranged a concert by Camilla Williams, a celebrated soprano on a tour of Africa. In 1946, he had been the first African-American soprano to sing with a major opera company when she made her debut with the New York City Opera, performing the lead in Madame Butterfly. These social events were ideal opportunities for the delegates to mingle and meet each other, and Nkrumah was the ideal host, although he himself was teetotal. He readily accepted a glass with alcohol, occasionally raising it to his lips, so that few people realized he was not drinking. Nkrumah's life was austere and disciplined. He fasted once a week and meditated daily. But he always sought to ensure that this side of his personality did not make others feel uncomfortable. For Lumumba, the conference was a previously undreamed of opportunity to meet the key thinkers all over Africa. He was frequently in the company of the medical doctors, Fanon and Momi, with whom he spoke in French. Many of the participants were impressed by Lumumba's energy and enthusiasm for the Pan-African ideal. He rapidly became one of the stars of the conference. For George Hauser of the American Committee on Africa, Accra, an organization that had been founded in 1953 to support the liberation of Africa, his meeting with Lumumba was memorable. We had a session with Lumumba about what his situation was at that time. He noted in a report for his organization, he was very live person, a real activist, a striking personality. Joshua Nkomo commented that Lumumba was an endless talker, passionate about his own country, but he added somewhat resentfully, he seemed completely uninterested in the rest of Africa. In the plenary session on the morning of the Tuesday, 9th December, it was Shirley Graham's turn to take the floor and to read out the speech of her husband, Dr. Webb Du Bois. He was too infirm to travel and had remained in the USSR, where they now lived. Graham was one of only 8 official women delegates. The small number bitterly disappointed Eslander Robertson, but noticed Maida Springer with pleasure. The women, particularly the French-speaking women, were on fire. They talk about the social problems faced by women. They were burning questions, and these women raised them all. They were, education, employment, religious and marriage customs, and they annoyed some of the African men. There were some men, she added, who just couldn't quite cope with the articulateness of the women. In a couple of the small committee meetings, they tried to shout the women down. Mathe Ohande, who represented the Cameroon Women's Democratic Union, gave a speech in which she traced the struggle of women for independence and for their own rights. He was followed by Fanon, who was scheduled to speak on behalf of the FLN. Fanon worked slowly to the rostrum, dressed in a somber, pale-colored suit with a bright white shirt. He wore dark glasses as a shield against the glare of the sun streaming through the windows. He had resolved to use his speech at the AAPC as an opportunity for the very first time in public to make the case for using violence to resist colonialism. This would challenge the commitment to Ghanaian non-violence, which so far had been the hallmark of the conference. Usually, Fanon, thin and ascetic, spoke in a dispassionate and intellectual manner. But on this occasion, he gripped both sides of the lectern and leaned forward towards the audience. However, regrettable the use of violence, he insisted with emotion. It had to remain an option. He gave a disturbing account of the atrocities carried out against Algerians by French, arguing that freedom fighters in Africa could not rely on peaceful negotiations alone. Algeria, he stated firmly, was not a part of France. This brought the audience to his feet. It does not mince words, mused Ezekiel Umfalele. What FLN man can afford the luxury? He said, what FNL man can afford the luxury anyway? Algerians have no other recourse but fight back, he says, and FLN means to go through with it. Some of those who did not speak French struggled to follow part of Fanon's speech. The conference had not been able to organize simultaneous translations because of the shortage of funds. So people were interpreting from the platform. Even so, Fanon's speech took the conference by storm. He got the loudest and longest ovation of all the speakers. In effect, noted one delegate, Fanon succeeded in changing the theme of the conference from nonviolent liberation struggle to struggle by any means. In a 2-hour press conference after Fanon's speech, Tom Mboya, in his role as chairman, was interrogated by journalists about his reaction. Mboya replied carefully. He said that the Algerian situation was one of the most important matters to be considered by the conference. There were scenarios, he suggested, in which it was necessary to retaliate. African leaders at this conference are not pledged to any specific policies, he pointed out. They are not pacifists. If you hit them, they might hit back. Fanon's speech had electrified the conference. Then, on the same day, there was another dramatic development of a different kind. Alfred Hutchinson, a leader of the African National Congress of South Africa, suddenly and unexpectedly turned up. He had been one of the 156 accused of high treason by the apartheid state in the infamous treason trial. Nelson Mandela was another. When charges were dropped against Hutchinson, he resolved to leave South Africa immediately without a passport and to make his way to Ghana. He assumed the identity of a migrant mine worker from Unyasa land, traveling home. After a harrowing journey of 2 months, covering almost 3,000 miles and passing through colonial territories supportive of apartheid, he finally arrived in Accra. The conference delegates were overjoyed. Hutchinson stalked up the aisle, 6 feet of him, recorded Umfalele, just like one of those outlaws on the screen who come to tame and civilize a noisy, lawless town of the Wild West. Umfalele, who was on the platform at the time, rushed down to embrace the new arrival beside myself with excitement. The next day, Wednesday, the 10th of December, the Kenyan academic and politician Julius Gikonyo Keyamo went up to the rostrum. As he walked, many in attendance lifted banners. Free Kenyatta now. Keyamo demanded the immediate release of anti-colonial leader Jomo Kenyatta and the removal from Kenya of Sir Evelyn Baring, the brutal British governor. As Keyamo came to the end of his speech, the audience rose to his feet with loud cries of support. In the morning of Thursday, the 11th December, it was the turn of Anthony Enahoro, the leader of the Western Nigerian delegation, to speak. He changed the tone somewhat, the first real sign of a shink in consensus. It would not be realistic, he said, to expect support for a United States of Africa from every African nation. The Liberians also preached caution. Bola hated and Sigurd, noted one journalist. They spoke in a strong American accent. When Patrice Lumumba addressed the conference, he spoke without notes, as was his habit. The fundamental aim of our movement, he declared, is to free the Congolese people from the colonialist regime and hand them their independence. As Nkrumah had done in his speech, Lumumba drew on the United Nations as a moral and global authority. We base our action, he said, on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, rights guaranteed to each and every citizen of humanity by the United Nations Charter. And we are of the opinion that the Congo, as a human society, has the right to join the ranks of free peoples. The current injustice, he urged, and the stupid superiority complex that the colonialists make such a display of are the causes of the drama of the West in Africa. Lumumba expressed his gratitude to the conference for putting him and the other delegates in contact with experienced political figures from all African countries and from all over the world. Above all, said Lumumba, the conference reveals one thing to us, that despite the boundaries separating people in Africa from each other and despite ethnic differences, we have the same awareness, the same soul-plunged day and night in anguish, the same anxious desire to make this African continent a free and happy continent that has rid itself of unrest and fear of any sort of colonialist domination. There was no plenary session on Friday, the 12th of December. Instead, the committees met early in the morning to complete the resolutions. Their work went on until 3 o'clock the next morning, by which time many of the participants were exhausted. But they successfully produced 5 lengthy resolutions ready for consideration by the steering committee, which adopted them unanimously at its final meeting on Saturday morning. The closing assembly began at 11 a.m., bringing all the delegates and observers together for the last time. On the platforms were Mboya, Nkrumah, and other members of the planning committee. Patrice Lumumba was there too, indicating the high degree of respect that he had earned during the conference. Mboya read out the resolutions. One of them tackled neatly the controversy over the use of violence, which had been the focus of debate ever since Fanon's speech. This resolution took a pragmatic approach, declaring its full support to all fighters for freedom in Africa, to all those who resort to peaceful means of non-violence and civil disobedience, as well as to all those who are compelled to retaliate against violence, to attain national independence and freedom for the people. Where such retaliation becomes necessary, the conference condemns all legislations which consider those who fight for their independence and freedom as ordinary criminals. Fanon's victory in Accra had been total. Cameron Dodo assessed years later. He had liberated the minds of all African freedom fighters who had previously entertained qualms about the use of violence to liberate their countries. A key resolution of the conference was to establish a permanent secretariat, which would be based in Accra. Lumumba was one of the delegates elected to the secretariat. Hang on. So, which would endorse the position of the non-alignment and positive neutrality. We are not inclined to the east nor the west, said Mboya to cheers. Africa must be friendly, but always maintaining and safeguarding our independence. It was agreed that all African People's Conference would take place annually, and that the 1959 conference would meet in Tunis. Nkrumah gave the final speech to those who had come from beyond Africa's shores, and especially African Americans from the United States and the Caribbean. He expressed his heartfelt appreciation. We must never forget, he said, that they are part of us. These sons and daughters of Africa were taken away from our shores, and despite all the countries which have separated us, they have not forgotten their ancestral links. Many of them have made no small contribution to the struggle for African freedom. He concluded with his vision of the future. We shall from now on march forward in solid phalanx, united in the spirit of brotherhood and solidarity, so formidable in our strength that all the forces ranged against us shall not prevail. He was thunderously cheered. Then one of the organizers asked the audience to sing Nkosi Sikelele, Sikelele, God bless Africa, and Morena Boloka Sechaba, God bless our country. Pointing to the map of Africa on the wall, he asked them to respond, Maiyegun, Bring back Africa. Bring back Africa. The conference ended on a note of euphoria. To young Africans like myself at the time, said Bereket Habte Selassie, a representative of the Ethiopian National Patriotic Association. It was a moment at once defining and awe-inspiring. Fanon was also elated. He was convinced that almost 60 million Africans would be free by 1960. The African Revolution, observed Nkrumah with solemn satisfaction, had started in earnest. So I'm going to take a tea break because that brings us to the end of the first part of this chart, part 1. We are now going to go to part 2. The part 2 for this reading, the part 2 chapter 1. No, sorry, part 2, chapter 5. We will continue from that in a minute. So let me have a tea break. And tell me what you think. So those of you who have been listening, you tell me what you think so far. The history that you need to know. How America swept into Africa, and then they started their Cold War in Africa in order to undermine what could have been an independent Africa. And Africa was never independent. You know that. So I'm going to go get myself something now.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò. Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Thank you so much, brethren. So I know normally, we open the line straight up and then we start taking calls, right? I just, do you think we should just leave it at that and I'll let you react? Open the line, let everybody now start reacting to what we have actually shared so far. So we have spent about 90 minutes right now. So we started with Frosto Sotobo Keyamo. So I want you to please tell me, do you want me to continue for a moment more? Or we should just open the line? Because I know some of you are already calling in. Which one do you like? Tell me. So give me a sec. I'm going to go read the comments so that I can know. Should we continue? Or we can take calls now. React. Okay. So someone said that we should open the line. That's the first one. You want to react. People want to call in. Right. So maybe we should open the line. Take 1 or 2 calls. Right? And then continue. But we have 520 something pages to read. So this can take us like about 3 weeks. So what do you say? Continue for a few more minutes, right? Then take calls. I told you I can be here with you. We can be here for like another 2 hours. I can read chat. So you need more before you can start reacting, Abby. Great. Now let us continue then. So keep the line right here off. There's no point calling in then, okay? Let us continue. So this time around, we are continuing from part 2, the CIA, and that will now be chapter 5. Infiltration into Africa. The absence of a goodwill communique from America to the All-African People's Conference in Accra had been noted with regret by the delegates. Then, just before the final session, a message arrived from Vice President Nixon. He had been advised of the bad impression created by America's silence and was seeking to put this right. Even so, one of the American delegates described the telegram as a lukewarm statement, quite out of keeping with the spirit of the conference. In any case, his telegram arrived too late. The hard-working committee or committees did not have time to read it out. However, the US had in fact been well represented throughout the conference in covert and unforeseen ways. Nearly 40 Americans went to Accra in December 1958. African Americans and white Americans in fairly equal numbers. Some of them attended as individuals in their own right, such as the civil rights activist, Congressman Charles Diggs Jr. of Detroit. Others represented non-governmental organizations, NGOs, such as the African American Institute, the American Society of African Culture, the Harlem-based United African Nationalist Movement, the Quaker organization known as the American Friends Service Committee, the American Committee on Africa, the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, and the Associated Negro Press. Although they all shared an interest in Africa, they came from varied backgrounds and had different political points of views. Many of those who were Nkrumah's personal friends had a history of involvement in the Council on African Affairs, which had been created in 1937 in the United States as a way of supporting the struggle against colonialism and racism in Africa. Its headquarters were in Harlem, in New York City. The first executive director was Max Maiyegun, an American intellectual who had been among the first Black YMCA missionaries in South Africa. Horrified by the racism of South Africa, he had eschewed the more mainstream civil rights organizations in favor of communism. In the council, he worked closely with Paul Robeson. Other members included Eslander Robertson, Webb Du Bois, Charlie Graham, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., Ralph Bonche, and William Alpheus Hunting Jr., a former professor at Howard University. The council published the monthly bulletin New Africa, which shone a spotlight on injustices in Africa, with articles by scholars, including Du Bois and Hunting. The council created a successful public profile and organized mass meetings, including rallies attended by tens of thousands in Madison Square Garden, I thought as much, and at the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem. Nkrumah participated in a conference in 1944, organized by the council to project an international program for the post-war liberation of Africa. Maiyegun was ousted as executive director in 1948. He had become openly anti-communist, and from 1952 started to collaborate with the FBI against the council. By then, the council had become a casualty of the Cold War. The House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, accused members of the council of being communists and pointed to the fact that some, like Paul Robeson, had visited the Soviet Union in Soviet Union. In 1954, Executive Director Hunting was subpoenaed to appear before a grand jury and was forced to surrender all the council's documents relating to their communications with African National Congress of South Africa. The council, effectively crippled by the investigation of HUAC, was dissolved in 1955. Meanwhile, Hunting served 6 months in prison for refusing to reveal the names of the contributors to the Civil Rights Bail Fund. In May 1952, Maiyegun was named as a communist by a former staffer of the National Negro Congress and called to appear before the House Un-American Activities Committee. There, he disowned his earlier political convictions, vigorously denying any willing association with communism. His biographer, David Henry Anthony III, refers to the relentless, still largely secret pressure to which he and his family were subjected by the intelligence community. Only Maiyegun himself and those who convinced him to turn new only Maiyegun himself and those who convinced him to turn knew what forced his hand. It is not to be found in Maiyegun papers, observed Anthony. It is hinted that in his FBI file, however, where among bowdlerized, whatever that is, what is that? Bowdlerized or bowdlerized. Damn it, I've never seen that word before. B-O-W-D-L-A-R-I-Z-E-D. Anyway, forget it. And redacted documents lie the traces of betrayal or vengeance or other emotionally laden acts by which sensitive material was leaked to the Bureau. It is likely, Anthony, that Maiyegun feared not only for himself but also for his children, for whom he was willing to sacrifice anything and everything. When the Council on African Affairs was dissolved, it left a substantial and significant gap in American society that, from the point of view of the CIA, needed to be filled safely by individuals who were not susceptible to communism. The Council on African Affairs had taken a position of active political and practical support for African liberation, a stance not adopted by the African American Institute, which sent members to the All African People's Conference in Accra in 1958. The AAI had been established in 1953 by a multiracial group of academics and businessmen with powerful mining interests in Central Africa. The academics included Horace Mann Bond, who had been president of Lincoln University, Nkrumah's alma mater. In 1951, 6 years after Nkrumah had left the US for Britain, Bond conferred on him the honorary degree of Doctors of Law. Bond went to Accra for Ghana's independence ceremony, and he also attended the AAPC the following year. By then,
He was the dean of Atlanta University. He had been forced to resign from Lincoln University in 1957 because of concerns about his management. The stated aim of the AAI was to establish closer bonds between the peoples of Africa and the United States. It organized scholarship programs, teacher placements in Africa, and a variety of lectures, information and visitor services. The AAI headquarters were in New York City, where it had plush offices at 345 East 46th Street, only a 4-minute walk from the United Nations General Assembly, which facilitated access to United Nations delegates and events. It also had an office in Washington, centrally located at 1234 20th Street, and an office in Accra. It published a monthly magazine titled Africa Special Reports, later Africa Reports, which was edited by Bob Keith. But the AAI was not what it seemed. It was set up by the CIA. And they were showing interest as if to say they were interested in Africa. Are you following? Good. But the AAI was not what it seemed. This fact emerged in February 1967, when the New York Times published a series of articles revealing that a number of American organizations were fronts created by the CIA and were funded secretly through an array of pass-through channels and foundations. The starting pistol for the articles was fired by the underground magazine Rampart. An earlier series of articles about the CIA had appeared in the New York Times in 1966 without much impact. But now, the story took off. Like electricians tracing out the underground wiring of complicated circuits, reported one journalist in 1969. Newsmen dug deeper and examined hundreds of foundation tax records and grant lists. Again and again, to their amazement, they succeeded in making connections between a labyrinth of non-profit organizations and a hidden generator. This generator was demonstrably the CIA. Eventually, more than 225 different organizations operating in many parts of the world, including Africa, were identified as direct or indirect recipients of CIA funds. Some of them were specially created by the CIA, while others had been set up independently from the agency and were then sponsored and funded by it. One of the CIA fronts revealed the Washington Post on 26 February 1966 was the AAI. Bob Keith, the chief editor of the AAI journal, Africa Special Reports, was registered at the AAPC in Accra as an American press correspondent. In a dramatic moment, Keith was found hiding in the Accra Community Center during a closed session of the conference, which was off limits to the press. He was arrested by Ghanaian police, who discovered recording equipment on his person. Keith tried to justify why he was there. He said he had entered the building in order to obtain photographs from the center's official photographer. Several decades later, Kojo Bosio, Ghana's Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time of the AAPC, was asked about Keith's secretive behavior. Bosio laughed as he remembered the occasion. Yes, I think he was a journalist who wanted to get to the place where he could record everything. He had a recording machine on him. At that time, it was a very silly thing to do. The AAI had put down roots in Accra before the AAPC. In 1957, it had established its West African office there under the leadership of Emmett Jefferson, Pat Murphy, a historian of Africa who was the AAI's executive vice president. On the evening of Monday, the 8th of December, 1958, the AAI held a reception for AAPC delegates in Murphy's family home. This was an ideal opportunity for the AAI to network and build contacts with the future leaders of Africa. Another CIA front that sent representatives to the AAPC was the American Society of African Culture, known as AMSAC. Its links with the CIA were exposed by the New York Times on the 17th February 1967. It had been established in 1957 as a kind of American version of the Société Africaine de Culture, SAC, which was based in Paris. The SAC, led by Alioune Diop, a Senegalese philosopher who also attended the AAPC, had been publishing literature on negritude since the founding of his magazine, Présence Africaine, in 1947. The negritude movement had been started by Francophone intellectuals in the 1930s as a celebration of African culture. When AMSAC was first set up, its New York headquarters at 16 East 40th Street were shared with the Council on Race and Caste in World Affairs, CORAC, which was yet another front organization established by the CIA. CORAC claimed to examine the extent to which the communists were capitalizing on racial conflicts globally. In 1958, CORAC and AMSAC merged. The professed aim of AMSAC was to expose African Americans to their African heritage, and the organization was explicitly anti-communist, albeit avowedly apolitical. As well as offices in Paris and New York City, it had an apartment on Fifth Avenue to host guests. It gave scholarships to African students and published its own journal, African Forum. It also had an ambitious cultural and educational program. In 1961, it organized a music festival in Lagos, Nigeria, which lasted 2 days and nights and featured the cream of African American music talents, including Nina Simone. Because of its abundant resources, AMSAC was dubbed by some as Uncle Moneybag. But the artists benefiting from AMSAC's largesse at that time did not know it was a covert CIA front. AMSAC sent 3 representatives to the AAPC conference. One of these was its president, Horace Man Bond, who was also representing the AAI. Another representative was Will Massa Cook, a scholar of Francophone literature. He was on the faculty of Howard University but lived in Paris. The third AMSAC delegate was John Aubrey Davis, who was the executive director of AMSAC and a political scientist at City College, New York. He was also a commissioner in the New York State Commission Against Discrimination. All 3 were among the group of 5 African Americans who had founded AMSAC. Davis sent AMSAC at least 2 detailed reports on the speakers and events at the AAPC conference with careful analysis. They gave an account not only of the African delegates, but also of the other Americans who were at the conference. To one of the reports, he attached various Ghanaian newspapers which listed the names of the conference delegates with their pictures. These reports were sent to James Theodore Ted Harris, Jr., who was the Assistant Executive Director of AMSAC and had been the National Student Association's 2nd president in the late 1940s. In 1967, it was revealed that the National Student Association had been covertly used by the CIA. Harris had operated as an embedded CIA agent. According to the New Yorker, the National Student Association functioned as a glove that concealed the American government's hand and allowed it to do business with people who would never knowingly have done business with the American government. These people thought that they were dealing with a student group that was independent of the government. They had no idea that the NSA was a front. After the exposure of covert financing by the CIA, AMSAC's funding apparatus was dismantled. This left the organization scrambling about, looking for money. Membership declined sharply. People believed they had been fed lies and that their goodwill had been abused. The leaders of AMSAC claimed to have been the victims of official deception, but this claim is contradicted by evidence analyzed by Hugh Wilford in the mighty Wallitzer, How the CIA Played America. Wilford records that Adelaide M. Cromwell, a sociologist at Boston University and a co-founder of his African Studies Center, was a member of AMSAC's Executive Council. In February 1967, he wrote a memorandum to the other members which suggests Wilford, right? A widespread state of wittiness within AMSAC. The memo stated, I remember the exact time and place, almost 8 years ago, when such a possibility was first confided in me, and by whom. Several years later, further and more detailed information was given me by another friend. Around the edges were frequent innuendos and asides. None of this was documented, understandably so. So Wilford also refers to an illuminating report by Yvonne Walker, the managing director of AMSAC. One day, according to this report, 2 members of the CIA showed up for an appointment with Dr. Davis. I didn't know who they were at the time, but they called me into the office and explained to me what was going down. and that they will require me to take an oath. Subsequently, Walker and other officers of AMSAC met with their CIA case officers in hotel rooms, usually in New York, but also in Washington. They, the CIA officers, were kept fully informed by Dr. Davis on everything that was going on, he recalled. And I'm sure that they helped to steer some of the plans. Wayne Urban, the biographer of Horace Mann Bond, tackles the issue of whether his subject was witting or unwitting, whether or not he knew that the AAI and AMSAC were CIA fronts. There is ample evidence, he writes, for concluding that if he did not know, he did not want to know. So, and if Bond did not know of these links, he adds, he should have known. Urban also points to a letter from Bond to Nkrumah, in which Bond asked for an invitation to the AAPC conference in Accra for AMSAC members, and described the organization as concerned with intellectual studies and artistic attainment. It is not a political organization, Bond said. This was not candid. This was not candid, argues Urban, since a distinct part of AMSAC's agenda was the pursuit of the political goals of American foreign policy. Another of the many American organizations exposed as CIA fronts in the 1960s was the Congress for Cultural Freedom, CCF, which was founded in 1950 and based at 104 Boulevard Haussmann in Paris, a handsome 19th century building in the center of the city. The CCF was the brainchild of Claude Meyer Jr., who headed a branch of the CIA called the International Organizations Division. Michael Joselson, a gifted polyglot, who was the executive director of the CCF and managed it in Paris, was a salaried CIA officer. Only a selected few of those who benefited from the Congress's sponsorship were told where its fund came from. The CCF functioned as an international group of liberal intellectuals, and at its height, was active on 5 continents, with offices in more than 30 countries. Among many other projects in different parts of the world, it ran an African program, of which the US academic Marcel Cook was director from 1960 to June 1961. The South African exile Ezekiel Umfalele then took over the helm. The CCF's core aim was to mobilize left-wing thinkers who were non-communists, according to Francis Stoner Saunders, the author of Who Paid the Piper? A detailed study of the CIA and the Cultural Cold War. These figures were designated as a group and non-communist left, NCL, in State Department and intelligence circles. In Latin America, where the Congress for Cultural Freedom subsidizes conferences, magazines and books from 1954, its dominant ethos resembled that of Western European social democracy with strong anti-communism attached to moderate social reform in a democratic context. We all felt that democratic socialism was the most effective bulwark against totalitarianism. Recalled the historian author M. Schlesinger Jr. some years later. Schlesinger knew the CIA origins of the Congress from the outset. Explained to Saunders, although he was not an employee of the agency himself. Indeed, a number of CCF members were aware of the CIA connection. In 1966, the budget for the CCF topped $2 million, equivalent to nearly $16.5 million in 2020. In April of that year, a team of correspondents at the New York Times wrote a series of 5 articles on the covert method of the CIA. These articles received little of the public attention that made the revelations published less than a year later, in February 1967. The third article of the series, which started on the front page on 27th April, identified the relationship between the agency and the Congress for cultural freedom. There was a swift rebuttal. The CCF's leading intellectuals, Robert Oppenheimer, is that what it's pronounced as? I think I know a movie called Oppenheimer. Is it called Oppenheimer or whatever? Anyway, that's the name of that guy, Robert Oppenheimer. John K. Galbraith and Arthur M. Schlesinger insisted that it was a completely independent organization. Still, they did not discuss the source of its funding. So its funds. We've had 2 hours now. So let's take calls now. Okay. So we can stop here. We will continue from the CCF denying their CIA connection next time. And that is page 61. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. So now we can leave this out. There are more other organizations at the time that were set up. Remember, 226 organizations were set up by the CIA, okay, to be able to infiltrate so many freedom fighting organizations all over the world, movements, everywhere. Many of them were presented as Africans. So it made it easier for Africans to welcome back these supposed descendants of slaves that were taken from Africa. So it was easier when you see African Americans or you see blacks coming back from France or coming back from all these, colonizers' countries. You automatically just feel like, well, they are our brothers. Let's welcome them. And then they were actually agents of the people you are now referring. Yeah, Oppenheimer is called, I think. Thank you. So the people you now refer to as imperialists, okay? Remember that when the slavery was to happen, they sent the missionaries. They actually sat together in London to plan it, the enslavement of Africa. So they sent the missionaries. Guess who were the missionaries? They were not white people. They were the slaves that have now seen God. So they have to go and bring light. They were to bring light to this dark continent. So they sent our brothers back to us. Okay? And that was how they got the slavery. And the majority of us ended up on further ships. Or prepared us mostly, anyway. No, that's not actually what started slavery per se. What they used slavery for to bring in colonialism. No. They used the supposed freed slaves
to bring colonialism. Now, to end colonialism, they brought in other people to present like the descendants of slaves. They brought them back and they said they should bring in imperialism. We have not been lucky. Africans never stood any chance. The whole thing is rigged against us. And this is how they did it. Sorry for keeping you there, man. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Maiyegun.
Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Depressing, I guess.
You shouldn't be depressed, Baba. I mean, this should be like soul lifting. They help feed the soul with the right info, and they kind of keep your thinking clear too. See, when people begin to ask us, like, how did you get and all of that? This history helps us to understand what we are up against. We are not different from our own forebearers. Today, when all of us decide that we deserve better, now we can have an idea, or in fact, not just have an idea of where the real force of nature will come from. Okay, we should actually understand better why they will come for us. I think that's why the history is. Abba?
Yeah, you're right. But the problem is that where are the brave men like those of the old? All these guys are all about money.
Did not stand any chance, Baba. I don't think they stood any chance. How you want to do all this now, right? You are planning to be great country, at the continent. You call meeting of your people and so let's discuss that. But yet, there are others with sinister motive. They look like you too. But their job is to derail that. And they did.
Yes, that's what they do. That's what they're doing. The problem is that even the Nigerians themselves, if you come to push and shove, all these people are beginning to be, they'll be saying, they'll be saying, if you want to be forgiveness. It's like we are mad in that country. We are mad.
We can't be normal.
We can't be. I don't understand. Oh, okay, what if they start prosecute all those people now? On for 1 year, but be saying, leave them alone. God, ask for forgiveness. God will. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us?
A lot, Baba. A lot.
You say people will die, and we say, may soul rest in peace. What soul is resting in peace, for God's sake?
People that were killed.
But
you know that they have reported now that in the last 1 year alone, they said that more than 4,500 people have now been reportedly killed under Nkrumah by terrorists alone. Not those who have died of hunger, not those who have died because they couldn't have money to pay for medical care and all of that too. Sure, you get. There is no figure on that one, but these ones are people killed violently by terrorists in 1 year. Over 4,500. Multiply it by 3. That will be the official. That's the official. But the real figure, multiply that by 3. That's the real figure. We are all just waiting.
But the problem is that
disaster waiting to happen. I keep reminding us.
The problem is that people that stay out there in the diaspora, they're supporting all these criminals. You don't believe no Jew. Could give me more, man. Could give me more.
Everybody, Luma carry it here. Allah Bani.
Continue to live in the country where there's a light, there's a good road, but you are praising the criminals way back home. What's wrong with us? You don't share Legon.
See, anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
It's good to hear from you this morning. Okay, so like everyone else, right? You can call in and just let out the events. That's why you have this platform. The way you feel about it, the way you want to feel about it, you are welcome. It's a safe place. Idris Bawon. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir, from Nigeria. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Idris. How are you this afternoon?
I'm fine, sir. Fine, sir. And good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Thank you always for the lecturing, because to me, even I had to put in my earpiece to just be listening to everything, and I know that this country, to me, it has I'll just say okay budget, so I don't even think probably my own generation can solve the issue. I don't think it can get better in my own generation. So it's imagine the Western world. Okay, the UK now. I read from one source that the underground train has been working for the past 18th century, right?
Yes.
And yet, we are still using locomotive here, and even there is still no plan for it for any rail station.
UK is
so I don't know.
Right, UK is too far. You have chronic criminals in Nigeria who actually hate Nigeria and Nigerians. Do you understand that, right? There are some African countries that are not even bigger than the Western Nigeria put together. African countries, right? Who have a standard running infrastructures, modern infrastructures. They are not dumping locomotive in their country. But for those ones in Nigeria, they hate Nigeria. And people need to understand that your leaders actually hate Nigeria. Their actions and everything shows that they hate you. So you praising them, hoping that praying for them is like praying for people whose only achievement in life is to hate their country. Baba, go on.
You said it right. They hate the country. They don't even mean well for anybody.
No.
They are just for themselves. They are for themselves. Okay, sir. I believe that probably in the evening now you'll bring out the picture because it's just trending. These are EFCC, the former EFCC chairman that died in Egypt. So if everything is working perfectly well in Nigeria, I don't see anywhere in quickly banner. But why people should have any Nigerian hospital? Egypt, look there. So I don't get.
Nigeria is just a graveyard. See, people need to understand some certain things. See, when you see people who are running a country, okay, and they have a chance of this or that, but it's so disorganized, right? That their doctors are abroad. They are this, there, that, right? So when they steal your money, they buy houses abroad. When they need medical care, they go to London, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Germany. When their children need education, they send them to all these places. In order for them to show that they actually hate Nigeria, they ensure that all their children have dual citizenship. Their children are Americans, Canadians, British. Your criminal leaders in Nigeria. So what happens is that they take everything they can take from Nigeria. They try to buy another world for themselves and their family elsewhere. But when they die, they want to be buried in Nigeria. You get that? Because Nigeria is just like a graveyard for them. It's unfortunate.
So now today they were giving the final rites for that man, and I saw the picture of this man, the vice president, that's Shetima. I saw people. They were greeting themselves. So it's not taking me back to the words of Mr. Adelefa Rotimi, which says, "Do not die in their war." So Tobanja is none of my concern. Okay, we have one emirate and two emirs. Their fight is none of my concern. It is none of my concern. If revolution will start from there, let it start from there. So to me, I am ready for anything. Look at what happened yesterday, sir. You reported it yesterday. The issue they collected the Okada, the police people. It happened. No, it is not even Yanapaja. It is at your boy inward Ipaja, your boy.
Is it Ipaja? Okay, I see.
Yeah, it happened at
police post.
It happened exactly at the Oluwaga bus stop. That particular place is Oluwaga. So
it's true that they were taking their Okadas and they just revolted.
They took then, sir. Those police people in that axis, they normally extort and when you're gone. And those people, they now bring out vengeance that and so far so good. The state agent, they killed some. So can you instigate one like that? And see, I am of the opinion that if a revolution will start from there, let it start from there. And that is where I believe that is how ENSA started, if not because of the hijacked it. So to me,
When it's gonna start, when you start. Yesterday, they were demolishing.
We are all tired.
Some
We are
houses
all tired.
and they are demolishing houses in Asaba. And the first thing that guy said was, see my house. Oh my, if this revolution won't start now, make it start. I am ready. Oh. They've taken everything in Zadol. I mean, even
we are all tired.
So everybody will have to do something at a time, and you will not be able to pretend anymore.
Yes, now, even power, even everybody now. So no job. The little job. Oh, what? I saw from Lagos State government Facebook that they've employed some people. There's no adverts. They just employ some people. I don't know how countless of times I've gone to Alausa to seek for a job, position, but if job someone might be by want to employ that one. So what are you telling me? Let us start everything. Everything is the Popoye. Mr. Maiyegun, thank you very much.
We'll take care, Idris. Thank you so much.
All right, sir.
Nice one. So whatever is going to happen, we are ready. A lot of people are saying that now. We are ready. I'm gonna make this thing just scatter. And I like that. Okay. So what is going to erupt in Nigeria is going to be spontaneous. I keep believing that. You see that those ones who are protesting over Emir, they are sponsored. Any protest that you see people carry placard, it is sponsored. Can you understand me now? Because really, when the real thing starts, Baba, you know go carry placard. I have told you this before. Any, what do you call it? Any public, protest, they call them, whatever it is. Any one of them that they are telling you is peaceful. We're just going to do a peaceful this. There is no peaceful revolution. There is no peaceful protest. Protest is that you are angry at something. Telling you to be peaceful is like they are telling you that whether you're angry or not, right? Okay, just walk about. There's nothing your protest will do. Sure, you get any protest or any gathering that they will not ask you. I mean, you are not allowed to protect yourself. Put on a bulletproof vest. You can make them locally. Get yourselves some strong, studded helmets that can prevent any kind of injury to the head. Okay? Get yourselves, what do you call it? Torchlight, flashlights. Get yourselves face masks. And get yourself whatever you think can be used to disarm anybody pointing gun at you. Do you understand? Whatever you think you can use to disarm anybody pointing gun at you. All right? Then get them too. Don't go and join them. They shout, Soli, Dari. I have seen that happen many times. But yeah, it is going to be spontaneous. There will be no time to write anything on a placard. Everybody, Batuba hits everybody, you will be on that street, I swear. And the most you will do is to use your phone to tell the world that we are here, we die here. I do have a caller though. Hello.
Hello, Maiyegun. Good morning from Canada.
Say that again.
I said good morning from Canada. My name is Festus.
Festus from Canada. Is that you?
Yeah, Festus.
It is Festus.
That's my first. Festus. That is face.
Face tools.
Festus. Festus. Face. That's S and S.
Okay.
Festus.
Okay. Then.
Like your face.
I grab that then. Thank you so much, Baba. And it is the first time we are actually talking. So yeah.
Yeah, this is my first time of calling, but I've been following you for the
years. Right.
Yeah.
Please, Baba.
Yeah. Thank you. Maiyegun, I want to appreciate all you are doing. You have enlightened me more than I even understand about Nigeria. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, one thing I observe about the happenings in Nigeria today is I can see that these colonialists, they have many ways of dealing with us, If we say if, for example, we say we master them from this one, they have to shift to another one.
They bring
you
another
know,
one.
they bring another one. There's many ways they can deal with us. Now it's terrorism. You know, if I can say what about terrorism in Nigeria today, you know, I would say that it's sponsored from outside Nigeria. You know, I used to ask my friend sometimes, I say, why is it that ISIS, when the ISIS was running amok, you know, I said, how is it that ISIS, the CIA or FBI, they don't know where their weapons are coming from? You know? You know?
Then we later found out that also the creation of the CIA too.
Yes, of course. You know, I believe so. You know, I believe so. You know, why is it that even their weapons, most countries in Africa or some other countries don't have the kind of weapons they are using, you know? And they will tell me that they don't know where that weapons are coming from. They don't know who is sending that weapon. But if me and you can buy maybe about 10 ammunition or even 100 weapons, they will trust us.
Yes.
You know, but all these guys are receiving weapons in tons, you know, and they're telling us they don't know where this weapon is coming from.
Yeah, but you know, they just dump them in different deserts all over Africa. Yeah, kill yourself. So kill yourself.
Of course.
See the story of Congo. This story of Congo that is part of the story I'm reading right now. Yeah, they said they have over 100 airfields in Congo. What are they lifting?
Yeah.
Their resources. What are they dropping for them in Congo? Guns, weapons.
To kill themselves.
Yeah, now.
To kill themselves.
Like and then when they fly out of Congo, they fly out with all of their resources.
Of course. You know, like what we are reading this morning, it seems that they have found that this did not start today. You know, from the early colonial days. You know, when we try to find out when we try to monitor to understand one, they shift to the next level. You know, before they used this tribe and tribe to fight each other. You know, it seems that we are understanding that one now. They shift to terrorism.
We are getting around that already.
Yeah, they shift to terrorism. And if we can understand this terrorism, how they work, they have another way to deal with us again. You know. And I don't know if we gonna catch up with them and that's that because of our mind.
I know that their influence is so powerful and there's so much money that they have that they could actually influence the greedy, selfish, self-centered Africans to always towards any progressive ideas and just take us to the Stone Age. But when people ask that, does that then mean that we are just doomed? We are done for? The answer is that no, we are not. You see, there's something about how the world, I believe the world work is that, you see, when people are organized in their demand and put force to it, right? They always have to listen. And you know what they do is that they change your deal. To them, all these things to them is deal. We have horrible people representing Africa, speaking for Africa. A lot of them. And you see, the moment you are able to kind of get rid of these weak men from these countries. Now, I'm not saying they won't still assert their influence because they have really gone far. And this has been like a century of Cold War, which they have involved us as Africans now, right? But we can change the deal. Look at what is going on in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso. It's not that it's not that they have had the whole way out, but somehow now they are actually having a negotiation, renegotiating the deal that benefits them more. If it remains so, well, their story could be so different from what it has been. But that's my own view, though.
Understandable. When are we gonna do that? Because they have in abundance those that we use. Even in Mali, I think in Burkina Faso, I think it was in Burkina Faso or Mali. That young guy was the other guy. I think.
It's Burkina Faso.
At how many times they have tried to attack Burkina Faso? How many times
to assassinate him? That's the battle.
And they're using their people.
But do you know that if they succeed in assassinating him, it's not because Americans are too smart. It's not because the French are so powerful. It's because his own brothers, one of them, will have to give way. Somebody has to give access to them. For now, he's enjoying the protection and love of his people. But if you hear tomorrow that he's being killed, I promise you, it's not Americans that go in there and do it. Somebody will do it for them.
One of them. One of them.
So that's the issue.
One of them. That's the issue. So when are we gonna master the trick?
Like stay together, bond together. None of them has African interest at that. What they have always come for is what you have. Now we are not saying don't take it because it's like you've controlled that already. Or we must get the best part of the deal now, or you won't take anything from us. So if you have people who can stand their ground that way, so gradually, if it stays that way for long, right? Then we end the respect and maybe we can be out of the wood.
Anyway, that's your word, but I doubt that, man.
But it is possible. That's why some of us believe that if we can save Nigeria, as Nigeria can be saved, can we at least save ourselves and save our lives? We have identity before they try to force this on us. So if we can convince all of us and say, can we just face our own identity and face our problem from wherever we come from? I'm a Yoruba man, and we have more than 60 million Yorubas that we can see exist today. So those 60 million can actually be a country. And whatever problem we're going to face, we can handle it. That's why people like me is pushing for that too. But again, we shall try to do something.
Anyway, I don't know what to say. Anyway, let me believe you, but I doubt if you can do it because between us, we have a lot of moles, and they must find somebody to do the work for them. They must.
I know.
They must. If you say that you master the one,
that has always been.
There's the moles. Some are looking for the power for
some will just be allow me to be the president. Most of it is coming from a place of jealousy. Do you know that?
Yeah, of course. Especially,
It's not always like money, because most people who kind of carry out this assignment for these people, most of them are close to power too. They lack nothing. It's just that they just don't like the personality leading them.
Maybe they want to be the one in charge.
And they want to be the one, exactly. Just jealousy.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they will help them to change the trajectory of their country and their people for the worse.
Anyway, Maiyegun, thank you so much. I love what they're doing. I've been following you. How many? More than 5 years or 7 years? I can from the kitchen.
God bless you.
From the Alessia.
Bless you, man. Thank you so much. Okay, please keep calling and all that so I can get used to pronouncing that name better. Right? You have a very good one, sir.
You know your faith.
Yeah.
Faith.
Like faith. Okay.
Yeah. Faith.
Faithful.
Face of the faces. That's your face. Your face.
My face.
Your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Faces.
Oh, faces.
Yeah.
Why do you choose that? You should have given me something different. I've been struggling with faces and oh dear. I wouldn't believe a man would just be faces. Anyway, now I do. So I have a faces.
I reject my name anyway.
No, it's all right. I get it now.
My name is Patrice, so I call it faces.
Bless you, man. Thank you so much, though. Right?
I'm following you for your what I call it, your Facebook. I mean, as I say Facebook, I've been following for Facebook. I follow you on Twitter. You can see the face of faces. That's me on
face
Twitter.
Of faces. Now I do.
Yeah.
God bless you. Now I do know better now, Baba. In fact, you've now stood out. Okay, you stand out now, and I can say, yeah, when that line rings again, I will know who's on the other side. So thank you so much, Baba. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.
All right,
have a good one, sir. So that's face of faces, or just faces. How horrible it can be. You see, this is why I put this on. It's just that sometimes when I put it on, it just kind of blank me out from everything else, And I like to be observant of Maiyegun. I can know that some, but this one is just going to make me like totally You see? And you won't even know if you are screaming. I won't know if I am screaming as well. So I will just have to kind of be acting like, trying to kind of know. Anyway, Sha, I can hear everyone that calls me now. And if you say it better, I will hear it better. Here is Jima Gudu, a very dear brother. How are you?
I'm good, Maiyegun. Maiyegun Baba.
Jima.
Maiyegun Baba.
Yo, Jima.
Okoku Gongon. You know Gongon, you just remain Gongon, make I begin the beat Gongon for you.
Remain. You know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you say that thing, recording right now, when they bring the beat, you just say, gagang, gagang, like
gagang.
Jima.
Thank you, my brother.
Good dude.
How's the family, Gary?
I am very well, Baba. We thank God. We are still
bless
here.
You, man. Bless you, man.
How are you?
Bless you, man. How's my little Layla?
Well, she's there too. Very, very, very big trouble, Baba. Honestly.
I don't know. I just been.
They have this privilege, right? An entitlement too. I don't like it them when they are that young. But what can you do?
Now all of them get out. All these Oyibo picking, all these our Oyibo pickings. Now all of them get out.
They can always be very dumb, and they are very funny too. Like
funny.
When they begin to kind of respond to communication, right? You can love it. You see that time when they put up their tantrum, man, you just want somebody to come and take them. Can I donate this kid to you for 2 days? Okay, like that.
Like, so let's not go there. Let's not go there. It's a long topic, and we already have enough wahala on our hands. Enough wahala on our hands.
We should be thanking God.
Abi.
So, we are back. Oh, you did watch them?
I did watch them. I did comment section. Me and then one true emperor and the African wahala. Anybody will do any harm to quack him. Person go quack the leg. The other person go use and slam dunk. Say kill on so. We the whole so remember here. Now we do am there.
Please keep it up, all of you. Okay. You see, we were here, Yima. We were here when they were calling us enemies of Nigeria. Have you forgotten? That we didn't wish Nigeria well.
We were the ones they were calling wailing wailers.
And now some even said that we will be. I mean, if by the time the Nigeria here start flying, we will not be alive in Jesus' name. But you see,
no be here with this, so
we didn't hear. No
be here with this, so
of the Nigeria here. Solomon Grundy, born on Monday, Christian on Tuesday, died on Saturday, Baba. Now we can't see all these musketeers. They are not here to say, "Oh, sorry, Maiyegun, that we doubted you then." Sorry, everybody, that we doubted you, that it was fake. We thought you were enemy. They are not here. They are with.
So when giants enter place, all crickets they keep quiet. They'll have to keep quiet now because we told them from the get-go that what Sirika is doing is nowhere near any serious country who wants to have an airline would start with. Do you know what goes on? Do you know what goes on behind the scenes before you jump on that plane that you're flying? You have ground crew, you have air crew, you have aeronautic engineers, you have maintenance crew.
Safety measures. You will build things.
All the safety measures.
You have to build things to show your safety level. None of this was going on, no. They wait. The day airport, they wait for plane to land. I said, hey, Nigeria here today. 200 million.
And that is an example of educated people. That is people that will call themselves educated. Oh, more. You don't know how it is, what it takes to establish an airline. But you call yourself an educated person. Man,
is that not the same thing they are doing right now, Jima? Nobody since last year, I don't shout say another fake student loan, a fake. I even kept on saying, not that I want to see it as not happening. I would love them to do it, especially for the poor who can afford their fees, right? Make it easier, accessible, no stress, no nothing. Shebina since last year, I don't cry that one. There are educated people in Nigeria that believe that student loan is something that somebody can just say, oh, we have put 10 billion now. Oh, we'll put another 20 billion tomorrow. Do you even understand what it means? These questions are being asked. They say we'll be enemy.
Even if you love it, even if you pray, even if you do, even if you do everything possible for that thing to happen, it won't happen in Nigeria because you have not taken the right step to doing something like that.
No.
So even if we love it for them to have the student loan so that you can help the poor students to go to school. It won't happen.
Wishes don't make things happen. You don't wish things to happen. You have to do something. You have to put boots on the ground to show that this is what we are doing. And this number of people, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, who access it. This is the source of the funding. It is endless. Papa, you have to be clear. But you're running. Ashwaju said, I won't worry.
Those guys matter sometimes. Well, that's why most of the time I just laugh, because it becomes stupid when you know that something, that the position that these guys are taking is not going to work out. You've seen it 1,000 times. You know it that 1,000 times that if you don't take the right steps to do something, the end result will not be good. No. The end result, whose children are going to be kicked out of school now? Shebi I hear say it's not Trent University for UK here. So they chase some Nigerians out of their accommodation and school district. Who is bearing the brunt of it now? Is Tinubu's children or his minister's children? Are they being chased out? But your own children are being chased out because you decided that this is what you want. This is the kind of human being you want. You are telling me that, okay, with this book where they read now, where this book where just say CIA has agents in virtually every place and where they want them to be. In any organization that they want to place them, they place those guys. Are you telling me that me and you now, Maiyegun, if we go sell drugs for UK, God forbid, if we go sell drugs for United States now, and I don't mean this ordinary peddling, we are distributors of this thing.
Say for one account, I get
will you ever go back to America? Will you ever go back to America? You know, me and you, will we ever be allowed back into America?
If I don't come out there.
That's to tell you that when you come online and people are talking about how the imperialists and how the colonialists have done so much damage to us, and you come and say something like, that was a long time ago, we should move on with I did the ones in the power now. You are making yourself look like an illiterate online. Yes. These guys still have enormous influence in that place. In virtually everything that you can think of, every sector.
You know, even Escobar. Escobar that was moving drug into the United States. It wasn't just moving drugs, it was moving drug all over the world. Okay. So United States decided to say, it was becoming a thing, the Medellin cartel, what are they called, right? Now, he got arrested at the end of the day. They had to organize for somebody will be the accountant of heroin trafficker that destroyed Chicago at the time. There was this American report, Yuma, that said American government in the 70s, 80s, they deliberately increased crack supply to some part of America, especially Chicago, just to make sure that black American families completely broken up, become addicted, and it happened. So wait, if the American government or American CIA or whatever did that to their people in the 70s and 80s, then there is this Nigerian who entered America in the early 70s, somehow appeared at their airport. Then years later, he was accused of forfeiting, what do you call it? He was accused of running heroin trafficking with other guys. To the point that they went to Nigeria. They picked up his partners. That part of the story is not emphasized enough, Yima. They went to Nigeria. One of them who ran to Nigeria, they got him and took him back to the US. Others who wanted to run, they grabbed them. These Agbele guys and others. They went to jail for that crime. It was during that arrangement, that conversation. But what saved Tifnumbu, that we believe saved him, was because he has managed to escape to Nigeria early enough. And the fact that he's already joining politics, what do you call it? Democratic, Deco. CIA saw an opportunity. Why send him to jail when somebody like this can be a president or something in the future?
We can recruit him. People don't put the dots together.
Information. American government said, the FBI said they would release them last minute. They said they will redact them. They will remove everywhere his name appears on that document of heroin trafficking and all of that investigation. Redacted. Do you need anybody to tell you more now about how CIA and the rest of them works?
You don't find that suspicious? Come on. People don't think sometimes. I don't know why they just make mouth.
Click up for a lot of people. Though what people will ask you next is that, then what are we going to do now? Oshimbere lower me.
No, wait for me. I look for answer. No, wait for me. Wait for me. There, I look for answer. When I get the answer, I will give you the answer when the time reach. It doesn't make any sense for you to come online and start asking people, oh, what should we do now? You know what to do. Stop pretending that what should we do?
By the end of 2025, they are going to build the American and French base in Nigeria. Maybe people should begin to write that down as well.
I go clap for them in the street. Say, welcome. When I don't enter.
Just so people kind of know,
cost wahala. I like this book that you're reading, Maiyegun.
It's interesting.
And it's very interesting because it will help people open their eyes to the roles these guys played. Nkrumah, Sankara, Frantz Fanon,
Lumumba,
name them. Lumumba.
So many of them.
It will show you. It will tell you what the price that they had to pay for what they did. Because if you check out all those people that were in that conference that they organized, all of them were taken out one by one by one by one at the end of the day. That's the price they had to pay. But we will sit down here and we just feel like, asking us, what should we do? What did Thomas Sankara ask you what he should do when he found out that this was going on? Did he ask people what to do? He did what he had to do. Yes, he paid the ultimate price. But that is the reason why we are talking about them today. That's the reason why we are talking about them today. See? But, man, Maiyegun, thank you very much for this book, and I will continue to listen in. You're doing a wonderful job. Great advocate for me and the son.
Say me well to the young man too, the women.
Ingo here. Thank you, Baba.
Take it easy, Baba. So that's a Yima Gudu, a very, very good brother in the temple, you know. So listen, if you are still with me, I'm checking my time because I need to set up for tonight, right? So we've had about almost 3 hours. So I'll just take one last call. Go get ready for the night. I will have like 2 hours to do that, okay? So now let me speak to Charm. She prefers calling in the morning these days, right? Charm, how are you?
Morning. I'm fine, thank you. The morning is easier, so I don't have people I need to attend to, so the morning is always easier.
Right. Thank you so much for calling in, though. Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you so much. What can I say? The comments I want to make is really around this white malice. I read along with you yesterday, and I read today as well. And quite a number of things struck me as you were reading, you know. And just like the previous caller, you see, when they were organizing that, what's it called, the
African People's Congress.
There's a man that you mentioned his name, who was the person who drew up the agenda. And they said in what we read, they said he seemed to know everybody. And even if he didn't know someone directly, he knew someone who knew someone.
He's the special advisor to Nkrumah.
You see, those kind of people I don't trust. Because you never know where their true alliance is. People who know people, you don't know where they're leaning, right? He wasn't African, was he? He was a white person.
He's from Britain.
He was British. I think that for me, I think when you read and as you're digesting what you're reading, what you realize is that I'm not quite sure. I mean, Kwame and Nkrumah, all of these people were great people, but I think they underestimated the battle that they were going to fight. They actually believed that those people were willing to let the continent go. They just permitted them to organize themselves in that place just to make themselves, just to have a list of targets, to know who they need to kill, destroy, remove in order to carry on what they're doing. All of these meetings happened. The AAPC meeting happened in 1958. All right.
Yes.
Kwame Nkrumah died in 1972. Then what do you call it? Then you had the Russians. China was not really of a major significance because it was still an emerging economy at the time, so they were not really seen as a threat. But Russia was seen as a massive threat, has always been a massive threat. So I'm almost certain that even the Cold War with Russia had quite a lot to do with Africa. In the sense that
fought in Africa as well, even though it's pronounced as if to say it's just the Soviet versus sister, but it was mostly the Africans that suffered it. Because it was at the moment of African independence that they came on to inflict the war for resources, the war for scramble for Africa. Is it what it's called? Scramble for Africa.
Exactly. So, like reading it, I'm just saying that, okay, so the next thing you had was, they said the Soviet war began, the Cold War, began around 1948, thereabouts, right? So they've already had the intention to start crippling Russia because they saw Russia as a massive threat. China, not so much, because China's economic emergence was, in fact, I don't think they even imagined it. No. Then you had the Vietnam War as well, because you had a country like Vietnam coming to support, African independence. What then happened in the Vietnam War? They fought the Vietnam War. Nobody hears about Vietnam today. Okay? So it almost seems like everything, especially all the wars that go on in the world, it's a war of resources at the end of the day.
It is.
And who has the most resources? Africa. And there was never a point in time. There was one time I called and I told you that these people are playing a long game. We were still playing the short game. We don't really understand that. The establishment is so strong. All of the people who have participated in all of that conference, the presidents at the time, all of these people are dead. But the problem still persists. What that should tell you is that regardless of who is there, the structure is in place. So the problem we have is how to pull down that structure. Mm-hmm. But we're still being what they call it, how will I put it, being
disorganized. It's not like we don't know what we want, but we are not so good in organizing yet. There should be a
we're not so good. Not only are we not good in organizing, but I also feel like even in that AAPC, there were some pertinent questions they needed to be asking, which they didn't ask, and that's why I'm very, very suspicious of the person who dropped the agenda, because the agenda was carefully steered away from real important topics. Now you're calling nations, you're calling countries together to do all African People's Conference or whatever.
And I know it's to promote the idea of independence, and those who are from their different countries who are pushing for independence of their different countries were those who came together then. So it's just to encourage that, isn't it?
Yeah, you say to encourage, but to encourage it to who? To encourage it to countries. The problem that we're having in Nigeria now is that we're not a country. Nigeria is not a country, right? It's not a properly defined entity, because there are too many tribes and not tribes. There are too many people. Nations. There are too many nations. There are too many nations within that nation, right? So if we don't address those kind of issues, first of all, we can't begin to. I feel like fighting colonialism or trying to remove the chains is the next stop. The first stop is to actually identify the nations. First of all, they were still working under the parameters that were drawn up by the colonialists.
1884-85 Berlin partitioning of Africa was what they are fighting to free. I get you now.
Exactly. So for me, I feel like that is your point A. Why will Nigerians come together? Who is a Nigerian? What is a Nigerian? Right? We haven't even answered that question, and you're asking us to fight colonialism. No, we can't be working within the boundaries that they drew for us. We can't come together, and that's part of the source of the division. If you see what I'm saying, you're already divided as it is as they are coming. So the interests are so different. We haven't addressed those issues. For me, that should have been the first issue to address. Let us go back to
like redraw a plan and the countries
boundaries.
emerge based on
Exactly.
their similarity or something.
Let all the nations organically come together. Do you understand? So the Biafrans, the Oduduwa, the Middle, everyone. Even I'm not even talking about only us, because all of this was done not just to Nigeria. They were done to Cameroon. They were done to Congo. They were done to so many countries. These boundaries that they drew together, people that they mismatched together, and are still causing problems. So I feel like that is the first step. And then they started talking about gender issues. That the things that we're talking about and that was not the time for it. Even if women wanted to take a front seat to what was being discussed, fair enough. But that's not the problem we have. The problem we have is that we still have shackles on our necks, and there's no way that we can progress with those shackles. We need to remove the shackles. After we remove the shackles, we can start having conversations about, how we proceed and progress as nations. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. And that's why I said that they already had us at the back leg with that agenda.
Fanon that later charged them that non-violence approach is totally off. That charged the conference. They would have probably left the conference believing that they should still be doing the non-violent, peaceful, this or that. Anyway,
exactly. And
go on.
Yeah, and I feel that the person that came with the non-violence, with the violent approach, really understood the problem or the kind of hold that the colonialists had. We came at them; they were prepared for us. They talked about America not showing up. America didn't need to show up. They had their people in there. They knew what they wanted to achieve. If it was in terms of identifying who was going to be a problem, we already did that for them with that conference. Kwame Nkrumah was there. What they call Lumumba was there. All of these people were there. They all made themselves targets. But I guess you have to say, okay, if they didn't do that, what would have been the consequence? So
they were men of those yesteryears who I believe did what they actually felt was right at the time. Now, the good, the bad, the ugly of it, consequences of all of their actions or inactions is what you and I are kind of having to live now. So we should probably just see if we can make it better for our own children, or else.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree that we need to make it better for our own selves, but it's also identifying exactly where the issues are and how to actually proceed with regard to resolving those particular issues. I just believe that the biggest problem we have is these stupid boundaries. We don't know who we are with these boundaries, and it seems like even when we realize that the boundaries are an issue, we still have to go to the same United Nations to make a case for why I don't need to subject myself to these boundaries that you people drew up for us, So it's almost as if the cards, the decks are stacked against us. If you see what I'm saying, right? We still have to go back to the same colonialist organization like the United Nations to make a case where that at the end of the day they'll let you talk, but they're not going to do anything about it. So that violence that we are trying to avoid, it's almost like it's inevitable.
I mean, they say when peaceful, if you make peaceful transition impossible, then you will make a violent breakup inevitable. Charm, thank you so much for this morning. Okay.
I guess so.
Okay. I am going to see you later. Okay. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful morning, whatever hours left. Okay. Have a good one. Thank you so much, everyone. Right now, I want to go and see if I could still put together a program tonight. It's for the first time I actually overstretched it. Okay, but it's good having to mix two together. Then we started late as well. So thanks so much for your time. Help me share this, like it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will see you later, this evening with, like Martinelli would say, with another banger. Good afternoon.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀, làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò. Maiyegun diary. Máyégún làwa mọ̀ làwọn tó jódodo.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Máyégún ti dé o ọ̀rẹ́ ará ìlú.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Lórí Facebook lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Máyégún já wa sí.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Bó bá ṣe eré àní Máyégún máa wí.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Máyégún dáyàrí pòlítíkò.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Máyégún.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Àní Máyégún làwa mọ̀ tó jódodo.
Maiyegun diary, now he be number one.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bí pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bí gómìnà kówó jẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọlọ́pàá tí ń darí bá.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ̀rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o, Máyégún ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀, Máyégún ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Oníkan ṣáàtì ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe fáwọn ará ìlú tó gbé wọn débẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ̀rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Ha! Kì máa yí ṣe eré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Kì máa yí ṣe eré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Ẹni bá ti lè lẹ́bọ̀ lẹ́rù o, ọmọ bá dèrò kàṣà ìtú wọn síta.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ̀rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Tẹnitẹni ọmọ Maiyegun ọ̀rẹ́ ara ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni
ó fọlọ́run ṣọ́ ẹ̀ bá kìlẹ́bù lóòótọ́ olódodo ìlú ọ̀tá ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni ìwọ ṣá máa ń ṣọ́ra kò sì mọ́ bẹ̀rù bọ́tà ń lè rí bóníṣègùn lé káwọn mọ̀mọ́ fi ṣera wọn ni ó ti dẹrùn tí wọn ò gbọ́dọ̀ sì mọ́ bẹ̀. èèpo ọ̀gọ̀ lọmọ bá dérò tàjẹ́ ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ ó ti jọba lórí àbínú ẹni kò sì mọ́ bùyà àìsíwọ́lu ní ẹnìkẹ́ ìgbódì ẹyin lábàrá o ó kó ẹni tó bá dán o àkàmù Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ tún ra kì Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ tún ra kì o ẹ̀yin bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dèrò òní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ tún ra kì Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ tún ra kì ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.